Close your eyes. Now imagine for a moment that you're watching your favorite content creator stream a competitive multiplayer video game. They're usually pretty good, high ranking on the leaderboards even, but tonight they're having a rough time of it and the viewers are spamming live chat with "get good," "you suck," and perhaps most dreaded of all, "game journalist." You can see the pressure is mounting. Your favorite streamer is getting mad, clearly embarrassed by the performance but unable to improve, likely ever more distracted by the raw emotions that are building. They spawn, die, and spawn again. The loop is so predictive it's like watching a GIF. When all of a sudden they die one too many times, and in their outright frustration they utter a TOS-breaking gamer word. And not just any gamer word, but the bad one. The bad one. The hard R, the hardest of R's. Everyone is quiet. Even chat is stunned. The streamer is stuck, their face paused in a look of horror, their career flashing before their eyes. Meanwhile, a game blogger who just so happens to be watching the stream lights up behind their own screen. This'll do numbers on Kotaku tomorrow. They can imagine the headline, "So-and-so is racist." The clicks will be crazy, the numbers will go high. The clip of the debacle will even be trending online. Their life is over. Take that, racist. But now, I need to take over this imaginative scenario and ask, are they? Is the angry streamer who uttered the no-no word actually racist? In most instances, probably not, and I can use cognitive science to explain why. A heated gaming moment is a somewhat ironic and humorous way to describe a situation where a gamer shouts unsavory words in a moment of frustration. It was coined by Malaysian-born pseudo-American conservative and proven swatter Ian Miles Chong during the internet discourse that followed the PewDiePie PUBG bridge incident. If you understood absolutely zero of that, congrats. You are not terminally online like the rest of us. I seriously wish I could give you a cookie right now. Anyways, if you're unaware, the infamous bridge moment occurred 39 years ago, all the way back in 2017, when Mr. Pie uttered a racial slur during a live stream. He was in an intense gunfight and he let frustration get the best of him. As one would expect, a massive hubbub ensued, and he was painted as a racist by people within the media, as well as a number of his fans and detractors. Now, I don't personally know the Pewdsters. I've only ever seen a few videos of his, I've never privately spoken with him, and I doubt he even knows I exist. All this is to say that I don't know for certain if he is racist or not. From what I have seen, I don't believe he is, nor do I believe that he throws hard R's around too often. But because I don't know him or anyone else tied into controversy surrounded heating gaming moments, I want to make it clear that this video is not an endorsement or a defense of anyone in particular. I'm not here to absolve the perceived sins of other people. I just want to clear up misconceptions surrounding emotions and the inner workings of our brain, hopefully providing you tools to better judge the intent behind past and future incidents involving public figures, micro-celebrities, or even individuals within your own personal life. Although, before getting into the thick of it, it's also worth noting that while discussing offensive terms in an educational sense, I think censorship is unwarranted. Obscuring a slur won't change what I'm saying. You'd know the word, I'd know the word, so honestly, what's the point? It's simply illogical to be afraid of certain letter combinations in a circumstance such as this, and I'm not going to tiptoe around it as if the word suddenly means less because I gave it a cute name. As I see it, words are all about context, and in the context of this video, particularly as it pertains to racial and homophobic slurs, nothing from this moment on is intended as derogatory. However, should you be hung up about me using a very specific term, don't you worry about it. I got myself a pass.
Nika ni, Nika Nika. Oh, yeah, Sophia? She's cool. She gets an N-word pass. I'll allow it. Go away. I'm busy.
Few things have served humanity better than language, and by extension, writing. Without them, history as well as knowledge would be greatly diminished. The PS2 classic and overall best ever wrestling game WWE Here Comes the Pain also wouldn't have been created without him, and that's far more important than historical facts, if I say so myself. Although just as important as language is context. Without it, we lose our ability to fully understand and assess a given phrase or idea. Too often words entirely change meaning under varying circumstances as historical context, emotional context, and socio-political context forever alters what something means between one instance and the next. For example, there's a big difference between extremist Catboy enthusiast and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes calling a black man a nigger, and a group of black men using the same word as a term of endearment between them. One is clearly coming from a place of explicit bigotry, and the other is a means of upending that bigotry and showing camaraderie throughout it. Ultimately, words only have as much power as we give them, but understandably some words will remain taboo for far longer than others. But as I'm trying to convey, every individual usage of a term cannot be weighed against the whole as if they are equal. No word is 100% bad, and no word is 100% good. Likewise, lots of uses land somewhere in the middle, especially when emotion is the driving force. This is that pesky emotional context I mentioned 93 seconds ago. Knowing how to properly distinguish the meaning upon which a word is used is a skill we should all possess. As participants in a wider society, we simply owe it to everybody else to understand the difference between a good and a bad use of a word. We should also know the difference between an emotionally charged utterance and an intentionally cruel one. The reality is that any word can be used offensively. If I call someone suffering from epidermodysplasia varicuformis a tree boy, they may rightfully detest me, but tree isn't a bad word. I just used it in a mocking context which makes me an asshole. But what about unintentional utterances of unsavory terms, such as PewDiePie yelling nigger during PUBG or another streamer yelling faggot after dying? Does such a thing exist? Can otherwise good people still yell slurs and not be hiding a secret copy of Mein Kampf under their pillow? Well, yes. Obviously good people can slip up, because otherwise what would be the point of this video, and I'm going to use stroke victims to help make my point. Over 2 centuries ago, a neuroscientist named Jacques Lorda suffered a stroke and lost the ability to speak. After eventually recovering, he decided to research others who dealt with the same ailment as him, and one such person was a literal priest who couldn't speak other than to say the French equivalent of, "I fuck." Being unable to otherwise verbalize is due to a side effect of stroking out called aphasia. This is a condition that tarnishes the brain's ability to intentionally string words together. We call this talking. There are multiple types of aphasia, all of which affect different areas of the language center of the brain, but I am focusing on what's called global aphasia, which practically removes any ability to speak. Interestingly though, people afflicted with global aphasia may sometimes still utter slurs and other emotionally loaded terms, such as the aforementioned priest. This occurs because, and for the record I'm using simplified language here, a copy of those words is stored elsewhere in the brain in a location called the basal ganglia. It's important to note that the basal ganglia is more closely aligned to the emotion center of the brain, and so while aphasia impairs intentional speech, it doesn't interfere with reactive speech. If you've ever wondered why people with a particular type of Tourette's uncontrollably utter offensive words, this is the reason. They battle a rare side effect called coprolalia, and coprolalia affects the basal ganglia, forcing them to utter reactive language without a stopgap. You may now be wondering, why does so much reactive language seemingly share a similar pool of no-no words? Well, think about it. From a young age, we are told that certain words are bad. Don't say shit, damn, fuck, cunt, asshole, and so on and so forth. These are the words that our culture has convinced us are naughty. You say them as a kid and you get scolded, if not outright punished. This immediately makes them emotionally charged. Your brain associates raw feelings to those terms, and so into the basal ganglia they go. Even if you had lax parents who didn't care what words you used, social etiquette still likely affected how your brain stored certain terms, be it from school, film, TV, or really anything else. We are largely all influenced by the same outside factors in this regard. That's why if you compare sufferers of coprolalia from one country to another, the offensive terms they spew are likely to be specific to their region. Although a common through line will be references to sex, genitals, and bodily fluids, as most cultures treat them as things to be disgusted by or kept private, which makes them taboo and hence emotionally loaded. As Benjamin Bergen, a professor of cognitive science at the University of California, San Diego, explains in his book, What the F, What Swearing Reveals About Our Language, Our Brains, and Ourselves, quote, automatic swearing is localized different from other types of language, and as a result it behaves differently when the system is stressed or damaged, end quote. I put this all into words because it's important to understand how language, emotions, and our brains work. There's a reason many people have similar reactions to exciting, painful, frustrating, or horrifying scenarios. Think of someone stubbing their toe and spewing forth every expletive under the sun. It's just a verbal reaction brought out by an emotional response to pain. It is simply human. I think anyone who has played video games long enough has at least one instance where they got absurdly angry while doing so. We may try to deny it. I mean, who wants to admit to being so momentarily emotionally immature due to a literal game that they smashed a controller, screamed incoherently at the TV, or said a bad word after dying to a boss for the umpteenth time? But it is fairly normal. As an autistic person, I'm all too well aware of how a flood of emotions can trip a brain up for the worst. This isn't related to gaming, but I will forever battle back against urges to physically assault myself when negative thoughts become too all-encompassing. As I got older, I got better control over it, but it is still something I need to be mindful of. And while I am an outlier due to my condition, the things I feel are mostly just amplified versions of what normal people feel, and so I think the same parallels can be drawn. Brains are fickle things. Even the most in-control person can slip up. And I think it's important to acknowledge this reality. Good people make mistakes. Emotions can easily turn the best of us into momentary monsters fueled by rage. This is a tough thing to acknowledge though, let alone fight back against, because consider the age we live in. This is the social media era, baby. And if you have one bad day and a negative reaction to it around someone with a phone, your life can be over. Something we all partake in, even myself. We'll widely share and comment on videos that clearly show a person in distress, all in an effort to dunk on them and act like we're different. It's a performative gesture to pretend as if we're better, to convince ourselves that we're above having a mental snap. That person says bad words, but I definitely don't. Meanwhile, I ignore all the times I've had a physically painful accident that resulted in the reactive portion of my brain letting loose a naughty word. So maybe this video is trying to be a wake-up call to not just you, but me too. I go through this long-winded diatribe because on a deeper level, I look around me and I don't like what I see. We have the world at our fingertips, but it feels like we're all just getting dumber, distracted by an endless buffet of calorically empty content meant to keep us in a perpetual loop of emotional servitude. You may not recognize it as such, but we are slaves to the scroll wheel. Growth projections and a need to please shareholders insists that we rarely sign off, sacrificing our logical thinking to an endless barrage of stuff intended to keep us as high-strung as possible. Because being emotionally driven makes us easier to shepherd from one bit of content to the next. But I'm tired of being manipulated, and I want other people to be better at resisting it. Gaming rage may be my guiding post, but this extends far beyond it. The great political divide and the endless bickering on social media has the emotional sides of our brain working overtime. We are all much quicker on the trigger, ready to name call and cancel someone at the drop of a hat, painting anyone and everyone as racist bigots because they said a word we have been conditioned like Pavlov's dog to negatively react to. But as I can only keep stressing, words carry different context under different circumstances. You may not want to acknowledge it, especially as years upon years of societal pressures convinced us to see the world through a narrow lens. But there is a difference between being killed in a game and angrily and reactively spewing forth a slur, and someone with intentionally bad motivations calling you the same word. Now, this isn't at all to excuse angry outbursts. Emotional immaturity is still emotional immaturity. It is open to mockery, ridicule, and shame. People in the public light should have a better handle on their emotions. We all should. But we are fallible beings, none of us are perfect, so maybe we should cool it on the cancel culture side of things until we rationally work out the intent. No doubt, some examples of heated gaming moments come from bona fide bad people. They are angrily using slurs they likely use often. In some instance, they're not even accidental slip-ups. This is just how they talk in private. But we as a culture need to get better at judging one situation from the next. I know earlier I said this video isn't a defense of anyone in particular, but fuck me I guess, because I do need to bring up PewDiePie once again. Looking through his history, even considering his once edgier humor, he just seems like a guy who's trying to get a laugh out of people. Dark humor is not inherently malicious, and I don't believe PewDiePie is or ever was outwardly malicious. As the years have progressed, he has pushed people to read more books, pick up healthy habits, and find happiness in other areas of their life. Using all the available information, he seems like a decent human being. Nowhere do I get the impression that he hates black people. I do believe his use of the N-word in 2017 was a genuine slip-up caused by the science of the brain. A true, heated gaming moment. Meanwhile, let's create a hypothetical situation. Suppose Nick Fuentes decided to stream Rocket League, and upon getting scored on by the opposing team, he lashed out and started calling them every slur you can imagine. Given his history and his very public views, I think we could safely determine that his anger is driven by actual bigoted opinions of the world and its people. And this is all I'm asking of you. Whether left-wing, right-wing, woke, anti-woke, or this or that, please start using rational thinking before jumping on a bandwagon of attacking or defending somebody. Look into people's history to make well-rounded decisions, but also understand that people change, so also consider their present self. Learn how the brain works, understand the differences between intentional language and reactive language, be mindful of how emotions manifest themselves and the situations that cause people to experience them differently. Sometimes raging at a game may be reacting in the moment to nothing more than a silly boss, but perhaps it's merely the tipping point of something deeper, be it stresses with work, family, or just life in general. Few people are truly as awful as we like to convince ourselves, and I think we'd be better off if we focused on that. The world is not in a good state. This country in particular is beyond fractured. And so perhaps the one thing we need more than anything is understanding. We are continually divided online, pushed into ever smaller boxes, and from our boxes we sit there screaming at everybody else. In the game of divide and conquer, we have lost. We now process nearly everything through an emotional filter because we spend far too much time on platforms that rely on us being reactive. There's very little rational thought in the abyss that is social media. It inherently wants us to ignore context and to rely on emotions as a guide. We are being tricked into following the easiest path because being emotional is easy, far more so than being logical and patient, and the easier we are to manipulate, the more those at the top can profit from our time. We are supposed to be an intelligent species, and at our core we still are. We just have to dig deep and try to bring the logical side of ourselves to the fore. This is a video about heated gaming moments, but honestly, it's really not. Thanks for listening to me rant.
Hey, look. Labels blowing up my line and got me missing calls. Told her you ain't gotta hit me till you licking balls. Feel like ZVF, baby, I be cooler than the mink weather. Make a Coke bottle, give me brain till I think better. Back up on my shit again, hanging out with Benjamin. Franklin got me stankin' in the Lincoln, talking dividends. Look at what we did again, brought the water dipping in. Down in Texas on them elbows, where your digits been. All these niggas pussy, I can smell it through the audio. Lapping everybody, got me working on my cardio. Party over daddy home, creeping out the caddy comb. Straight from underground, I got these motherfuckers Maddie on. I been kick pushing on my grind since the pro skate. I don't fuck with niggas, you would figure that I'm pro hate. Chillin' in the cut like a